This is Mornings with Shufflin and Gibson on News Talk 99.3 KQMS.
Good morning. It's 8:34. It's Shufflin and Gibson on Don't Come to Work Unless It's Fun Day. And what could be more fun than getting Ron Paul on the phone?
Well, it must be fun to be Ron Paul. I bet you go to work every day because it's fun, don't you, Mr. Paul?
Oh, always. Always have a good time.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to talk to you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say it right off the bat. You were the first person I voted for president back in 1988.
Oh, that sounds good.
When I was old enough to vote. The first election I was old enough to vote in when you were a libertarian. So I got that out of the way, so my bias is revealed.
And you're heading in. You're heading in to speak in Chico tonight. Right,
I am, and I'm looking forward to that. We usually do well with the young crowd, the college crowd, so we're hoping to have a nice turnout.
Now that you've really revitalized that. In fact, I don't think they've seen that much excitement in the 18 to 24 range since Clinton's first campaign.
Yeah, and it does come and go, but right now the young people get me excited because they're very interested in something I've been talking about for a long time. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize that we're involved in a big mess financially and on our foreign policy and our attack on our privacy and all. And young people seem to be responding to this and have a concern about it.
I think people of that age tend to have pretty sharp BS meters, and I think that has something to do with it, too. As everybody knows, you don't back down on your stance on anything. You stick to your guns on every position you take. Nobody, I think, has ever called you a waffler, which is, in many cases, the thing that people really respect about you. And in some cases, it's maybe your biggest political baggage because people see it as an unwillingness to compromise.
Yeah, I think so, but it depends on who's trying to influence you. If people want to influence me because they want more freedom, then they love it. But if they want to influence me to bend and take care of the special interests, then it annoys them. So I think it depends on what they're looking for. But I think it's the issue because even hardly ever are there two people agree on every single thing. But I do hear back from a lot. I don't agree with everything, but we know where you stand. We can trust you, and the other ones don't seem to be straightforward with us, and that becomes an issue in itself.
Now, if you don't get the official nomination, is there one that you would endorse or back?
Not very enthusiastically. I haven't thought that through yet since we're still campaigning. But, no, I see the positions that the other candidates hold are essentially part of what I call the status quo of both parties. They continue the wars, they continue the attack on our privacy, they continue the drug war, they continue spending money and the debt and government involvement in everything we do. So I don't see a whole lot of difference, so I have to just wait and see how this works out.
So you see federal government's role as not much beyond defending the borders.
Defend our country, but we'd have a court system to settle some of the federal disputes and have a justice system. And one thing that they were absolutely told they had responsibility for, they totally neglect, and that is the monetary system. They were supposed to prevent counterfeiting and give us a sound currency, but now they have become the counterfeiters. They destroy the value of our currency. At the same time, if you and I want to start using gold and silver as legal tender, we could end up going to jail.
Really? That's not just considered barter?
No, you can't do that because of the legal tender laws. You have to settle everything with pieces of paper, and I can't get them to define those pieces of paper. It used to be the definition of a dollar was very precise in a weight of gold or silver, but now it's a Federal Reserve note is $1, and $1 is what it buys, and it changes all the time, and they get to print them. So that's why we're in such a mess, too.
Is there any way to go back to where a certain dollar figure represents a bushel of wheat or a unit of work or an amount of gold? Is there any way to go back to that?
Yeah. The destruction of currencies have happened over the centuries. And when total loss of confidence occurs, like in Zimbabwe or in Germany or in a South American country, they always have to go back and say, we're going to quit printing the money. So, yes, they will go back, but we have to go through, a period where everybody is convinced of it. That means not only will prices be rising at 6 or 7 or 8% like they are now, they might be rising 25%, and people will no, they have to do something about the currency. But then we will go back. Today, you can do it, but it's very expensive because you can't use gold and silver as money because you get taxed on it. You shouldn't be taxed on money. If you hold a gold coin and it goes from $1,000 to $2,000, you have to give the government a profit from this. So what I'm trying to do is not, just close down the Federal Reserve, but to legalize the currencies, legalize gold and silver as currency and take taxes off the money.
If we shut down the Federal Reserve, as you have advocated, what would they, without that manipulation of the economy, what would the economy do? Would we just watch it and hope that it doesn't collapse?
Well, it would be the economy would manage itself because the most important thing in an economy is a pricing structure. Mises predicted that socialism would never work because socialism undermines and doesn't allow pricing to work, so you know what supply and demand's all about. But we accept half of that notion because we let the Federal Reserve determine the supply and demand and the price of money and the interest rates, which causes distortions and malinvestment, causes the financial bubbles. So if you eliminate, all of a sudden, we might save money again. You and I might get a CD, but today, what's the sense of having a CD or a Treasury bill that earns nothing? So all the distribution of capital now comes from the Federal Reserve passing out to big banks who decide not to loan it out, but they buy up Treasury bills. So we don't have a market economy, and that's why it is so sluggish. So no, if you could go back and protect the market, encourage savings, encourage the interest rates to tell us whether we should invest or save or what we should do, the economy, rather quickly would come back.
I lost a lot of faith in that whole system in 2008 when I had to cash in my 401k to put a roof on my house and discovered that if I had waited another week, my 401k would have been worth about half.
Yeah, you did good. You did good.
Yeah, the timing was perfect. And then within a month, AIG is getting just an obscene amount of bailout money. So.
Yeah, the people who made the millions, if not billions, during the bubble formation, they got bailed out. And these housing programs and easy interest was supposed to help everybody, all the poor people, get a house. But they were getting a house, and they thought it was great. The value was going up, and they kept borrowing against their equity until the bubble burst. Then they lost their jobs, and they lost their houses. And then, like you point out, who got bailed out? The little guy didn't get bailed out. The big corporations got bailed out, and the banks are all back in business again.
I'm still waiting for my check.
Yeah, that's what we should do. We should send a letter to our president and see whether he will respond for us. Well, now, he's supposed to be taking care of the people.
Well, do you feel like speaking of which, are the other candidates, are they concentrating on these issues enough, whether it's the economy or job creation, or do you feel like the main Republican message right now is just let's change the administration?
Yeah.
More importantly, let's get...
It's all anti-Obama. And if you come to the conclusion that the difference isn't too great between the two parties, then that doesn't make any sense. It's just a struggle. I think it's a real struggle. I think Republicans and Democrats have a real struggle over who has the power to divvy up the loot and whose special interests get served. But the system is basically the same. So, no, they don't talk about civil liberties or the president's announcement he can assassinate American citizens and arrest Americans with the military and put you in prison without an attorney and kept indefinitely. No, they're not talking about that. They're not talking about, the monetary system in the Federal Reserve, and they're not talking about bringing the troops home. Right now, it's over 70% of the American people say we ought to come home from Afghanistan. Of course, I argue we shouldn't have ever gone in to occupy that country. So there's not a whole lot of difference is really the frustrating issue for me.
If you were president, would you establish a foreign policy that people would call isolationist?
No, I think the isolationists are more in charge right now because isolation means you want to interfere with trade, and trade is what keeps you from fighting and killing each other. That's good economics, but it was good advice from the founders. No, when you put on sanctions on a country like Iran, you're just looking for war, push up prices, and distort markets. Those who call me isolationists are the ones who they don't want to even trade with Cuba. I mean, the Cold War's been over, and I'm arguing with free trade with Cuba. Get tariffs down. Let people travel. So I'm almost the opposite. The only thing I don't want is to throw our weight around by invading countries, occupying countries, and telling everybody else what to do. And they wanted to sound negative because they want to have this influence and control over natural resources. So they say, oh, these people, if they don't want to send their armies, that means they're an isolationist. But what they want are our armies and our kids to go over and protect oil interests, which involves a lot of corporate money.
Speaking of which, do you think that paid lobbying should be eliminated? Do you think that should be illegal for a lobbyist to go and buy up congressmen for insurance companies or banks or whatever they're representing?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to get rid of it because that obviously reflects how bad the problem is because, like some have said, the government is nothing more than an auctioning off stolen goods. So there's a tremendous incentive for the lobbyists to go there and buy these interests. And that is, but I see that more as a symptom of the problem. Because lobbying, to me, is petitioning the government. So if you say the problem is lobbying or talking to government and trying to change things, then I think we miss the point. I think people always have a right, and they should be protected to be able to spend their own money and go to Washington. I think we have two things wrong. First, government is too big, and they have too much influence, so they're, very vulnerable. But also, we have people in government who are rewarded by this and who yield to the temptation and who take the money and influence their vote. Lobbyists have never come. They don't come to my office, and they don't even. I mean, I get PAC money, but it's from PACs who want less government. But PACs who want special interests, they don't send my money, and they don't come to my office. And we have too many people who respond to that. So simply putting a restraint on people spending their money and lobbying government, I don't think would solve the problem.
I guess it takes two to tango, doesn't it?
There you go.
The giver and the receiver.
Right.
All right, so how do you feel about those that are telling everyone else to get out of the way? We already know who our candidate's going to be.
Well, I don't know. I used to run track. I didn't run a mile, but it's sort of like you're running a mile and you finish 3 laps and one person's pretty far ahead. But nobody knows whether he might stumble, so you might as well stay in the race to see what happens. And I think the people deserve a debate. Why? Whose interest is it for some of us to drop out? It's the interest of the one individual that might be tired or something and doesn't like the job of continuing the campaign. The votes haven't been counted. I think the issue should be talked about until there's a candidate. But, I want to continue to push the issues I think are important. Privacy as well as the monetary issue as well as the foreign policy, because I don't think we have the right position on that. And I think if we don't have a better position, it's going to be very hard to win the election.
I think the unprecedented amount of debate time that's taken place in this campaign has really revealed a lot of character, and that hasn't been a good thing for some.
No, it's sort of whittled us down from 9 down to 4 right now. Anyway,
what's your main message going to be tonight in your in your talk with the youths there?
Well, it's the same message, and it's the message of liberty, and why it's to all our benefit, no matter what our personal beliefs are, our personal social beliefs, our religious beliefs, or whatever. It doesn't matter. The real issue is getting the government out of our lives and off our backs and out of our wallets, and do that same thing with foreign nations, stay out of their business. It's really the message that I thought was incorporated into our Constitution and in our early history.
Ron Paul, I'm going to gush. I think you're legendary, and it's been an honor and a privilege to speak with you today.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
And Ron Paul will be in Chico this evening. Thanks a lot.
And do you have an answer if you're there in Chico and they try to go, we're having a frat party over there. Any chance we can get you to come join us?
As long as they don't coerce me into doing things I don't want to do, they can do what they want as long as they don't hurt anybody else.
Fantastic. Thank you
they
again.
They can hurt themselves, but not me.
There you go. Thank you again so much.
All right.